It was a cold December night in London in 2010. Amy Winehouse had just finished another intimate show at the small Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club, a venue that had always been special to her. Her hands still trembled slightly, not only from the adrenaline of the performance, but also from the personal battles she fought daily. Backstage, she sat in an old leather chair, carefully removing her high-heeled shoes, which had hurt her feet after hours on stage. Sweat still glistened on her forehead, mixed with her signature black eyeliner, which had already smudged slightly. It was in these post-show moments that Amy felt most vulnerable, when the mask of performance slipped and she was alone with her thoughts. Suddenly, she heard a small, sweet voice coming from the hallway. "Mommy, can I meet the singer?" The voice belonged to a boy of just 6 years old, whose blue eyes shone with a special light, despite not seeing the world the same way as others. His name was Thomas, and he had been brought by his parents, huge fans of Amy's, who had been granted special backstage access through a local charity. Amy felt something different in that moment, an immediate, inexplicable connection with this innocent child who approached her with such affection and pure admiration. When Amy saw Thomas approaching timidly, guided by his mother's hand, something in her heart warmed in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. The boy wore a small t-shirt with the name Amy written in Braille, which his grandmother had embroidered especially for this meeting. "Hello, honey," Amy said in a softer voice than usual, bending down to the child's level. "I'm Amy." Thomas smiled with infectious joy and reached out his small hands toward the voice. "Can I touch your face? My mother said you're very beautiful and I want to see what you look like." Tears began to form in Amy's eyes. How long had it been since someone had seen her beyond her problems and addictions? She gently took the boy's hands and guided them to her face. Thomas carefully explored every contour, smiling with each discovery. "You have the voice of an angel," he said with the unique sincerity of children. "When you sing, I can see colors. It's like your music paints the world for me." Amy had never heard anything so beautiful in her entire life. In that moment, she realized her music held a power far beyond anything she could have imagined. That small, courageous boy was showing her the true meaning of her art. Thomas then did something no one expected. With impressive courage for a 6-year-old, he asked, "Amy, could you sing a song just for me? A song that makes me feel like I'm not alone in the dark?" Silence fell backstage. Even the technicians stopped packing up their equipment to listen. Amy felt a lump in her throat. Having often sung for thousands of people, she had never felt so nervous as she did in that moment. But there was something about the purity of that request that touched her deeply. She knelt beside Thomas, took his small hand, and began to sing, a soft, intimate version of Valerie, but spontaneously changing the lyrics to include the boy's name and words of strength and hope. "Thomas, you are stronger than you know. Your light shines even in the dark." As she sang, Amy watched the boy's face light up, as if each word were a ray of sunshine touching his soul. The people backstage began to cry silently. They had never witnessed anything so pure and moving. Amy herself could barely finish the song. She was so emotional. When she finished, Thomas hugged her legs tightly and whispered, "Thank you for showing me that I'm special." In that moment, Amy realized that she had received the most precious gift. After a few minutes of conversation, Thomas revealed something that left everyone speechless. "Amy," he said with unusual seriousness for his age, "I make music too. I want to show you." He asked his mother to get something from her backpack, a small toy keyboard, one of those cheap ones you can buy in department stores. But in Thomas's hands, that simple instrument transformed into something magical. The boy began playing a melody he had composed himself, a sweet, melancholic song about dreams and hope. His small fingers moved with astonishing precision across the keys, as if he had a perfect mental map of every sound. "I call it the Song of the Stars," Thomas explained. "My mother tells me what the stars are like, and I imagine what the music they make in the sky would be like." Amy was completely mesmerized. The song was simple, but it held an emotional depth that many professional artists take years to express. When Thomas finished, Amy couldn't hold back the tears. "Thomas, this is beautiful. You're a true musician," she said, her voice choked with emotion. In that moment, she realized she was in the presence of a pure, natural talent, someone who made music not for fame or money, but simply because it was his way of connecting with the world. Deeply touched by Thomas's talent and purity, Amy made a decision that surprised everyone present. "Thomas," she said with a determination she hadn't felt in a long time, "how about you come to my studio next week? I want to record your song, Song of the Stars, professionally." The boys' parents were shocked. They never imagined a backstage encounter could turn into something so extraordinary. Thomas, for his part, was beaming with joy. "Really, Amy? You're really going to record my song?" Amy nodded, feeling a renewed energy coursing through her veins. "More than that, dear. I want you to teach me how you see music. I think I can learn a lot from you." She turned to Thomas's parents. "If you'll allow me, I'd like to be a sort of musical mentor to Thomas. He has a special gift that needs to be cultivated." Thomas's mother began to cry with emotion. They knew the hardships Amy faced, but they also recognized her musical genius and generous heart. "It would be an honor," they replied. In that moment, Amy realized she had found a greater purpose for her music and her life. Thomas wasn't just a talented child. He was an angel who had appeared in her life at the very moment she most needed hope and renewal. A week later, Thomas arrived at Amy's private studio in Camden. His eyes were shining with excitement, and he carefully carried his toy keyboard as if it were the most precious instrument in the world. Amy had spent the previous days preparing everything down to the smallest detail. She wanted Thomas's first recording experience to be unforgettable. "Welcome to my musical world, Thomas," she said, leading him by the hand through the studio. She described each piece of equipment, each instrument, allowing him to play and explore everything with curiosity. When they reached the Steinway Grand piano, Amy's eyes lit up. "Thomas, how about we play your music on this piano? It has a much richer sound than your keyboard." Thomas nodded excitedly. Amy helped him onto the piano bench, and together they began working on the professional version of Song of the Stars. What happened next was pure magic. Thomas, even without seeing the keys, played with a precision and sensitivity that impressed even the most experienced technicians. Amy added delicate harmonies, transforming the simple melody into a rich and moving composition. For hours, they worked together, laughing, experimenting, creating. For the first time in months, Amy felt truly alive and inspired. Thomas had rekindled her passion for pure music, free from the pressures of the industry or the ghosts of her personal struggles. During the recording session, Amy sensed something special happening. Thomas wasn't just playing her music, he felt it so deeply that he could convey emotions she hadn't previously explored in her own compositions. Inspired by this musical purity, Amy decided to do something unprecedented in her career. "Thomas," she said during a pause, "I want to write a song with you. It will be our song, just the two of us." The boy was ecstatic. "How are we going to do this, Amy?" "You're going to tell me about your dreams, your hopes, and I'm going to turn them into music with you," she replied. For the next 2 hours, Thomas shared stories about how he imagined the world, its colors, its shapes. He talked about how Amy's music made him feel like he could fly, that he could see beyond the limitations of his eyes. Amy, deeply moved, began, creating chords and melodies that perfectly complemented the boy's words. Together, they created Beyond the Darkness, a song about finding light where others see only shadows, about the strength that comes from within, and about how music can be a bridge between two different worlds. When they finished, they both knew they had created something truly special. Amy decided it would be the first single from a charity album she planned to release, with all proceeds going to organizations that help visually impaired children. 3 weeks after their backstage meeting, Amy arranged something that would completely astound Thomas and everyone involved. She had been secretly working with a local symphony orchestra and a children's choir from a school for the blind. When Thomas arrived at the studio that day, thinking it would be just another recording session, he found something extraordinary. "Thomas," Amy said, her voice thick with emotion, "today we're going to record Song of the Stars in a very special way." She led him to the center of a much larger studio than usual. As they approached the piano, Thomas began to hear whispers, movements, people moving into position. "Amy, there are a lot of people here today," he commented, intrigued. "Yes, dear, they are friends of ours who want to participate in your music." When Amy gave the signal, the orchestra began playing a majestic introduction to Song of the Stars. Professionally arranged, Thomas was completely moved, tears of joy streaming freely down his face. "Is this for me?" he asked, his voice trembling. "It's for you, Thomas, to show the world how special your music is." When it was time for Thomas to play, he sat at the piano with impressive dignity and confidence for a 6-year-old and performed his composition with the orchestra, creating a moment of pure musical magic that everyone present would never forget. The key relationship with Thomas brought about a profound transformation in Amy Winehouse's life that surprised everyone who knew her. For the first time in years, she was waking up every day with a clear purpose: to help Thomas develop his musical talent and at the same time rediscover her own passion for music. Weekly studio sessions became Amy's most anticipated moment of the week. She began to take better care of herself, wanting to be present and clear-headed for her meetings with the boy. "Thomas saved me," she confided to her best friend Juliet. "He showed me that my music can heal, can bring hope. I had completely forgotten that." Amy began writing again, something she hadn't done in months. Her new compositions were different, more hopeful, more connected to the human essence. She also started a social project, offering free music lessons to visually impaired children in her own home. Thomas became her special assistant, helping other children feel comfortable and inspired. "Amy sings differently now," observed her longtime producer. "There's a light in your voice I haven't heard in a long time." Thomas himself noticed the change. "Amy, you seem to shine brighter every day. Your music is painting the world with even more beautiful colors." For Amy, that special child had become not only an inspiration, but a true guardian angel who was helping her find her way back to herself. 6 months after that transformative backstage encounter, Amy and Thomas had created something much bigger than just music. They had bridged 2 worlds. Hers, filled with experience and pain, and his, filled with hope and purity. Together, they released the album Songs from the Heart, a collection of original compositions that included both their individual creations and collaborations. The album became a worldwide phenomenon, not only for its musical quality, but also for the moving story behind each track. Thomas, now 7, had become a minor sensation, being invited to perform on television shows and benefit concerts alongside Amy. But more important than fame was the impact his story was making. Thousands of visually impaired children around the world were inspired to explore their own musical talents. Amy established a foundation in Thomas's name, providing free musical instruments and lessons to children with special needs. "Thomas taught me that true vision comes from the heart, Amy said during a moving interview. He sees things that many of us with all our senses will never be able to see. The legacy of that chance backstage encounter has continued to grow, showing the world that music truly knows no boundaries and that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can result in the most profound and lasting transformations in our lives.